Hey, and welcome back to day 27 of 31. We are almost done, but today I have a wonderful update that came from LM Studio. I talked about it briefly in yesterday's video, but what I'm talking about is multi-models in LM Studio with AutoGen. No, I didn't mispronounce that, and I didn't mean to say multimodal. I meant multi-model. Now, what that means in a big update with LM Studio recently, we can now have more than one model running on one server. And now all we need to do is adjust the model property in the config list, and we can have multiple config lists, each with different models loaded from LM Studio. Let's take a look and see what I mean. Okay, I'll put a video in the description where I talk about LM Studio, how to download it, install it, and get it running, and kind of working your way around it. But in the latest update, we have the multi-model sessions where you can load and prompt multiple local models simultaneously. So how does that work? Well, once you download and install it and run LM Studio, you'll be greeted with this screen. And the first thing you need to do is actually download at least two different models. So on the homepage here, you can just look at some of these here, like Google's Phi2, Quen. You can come down here to get Zephyr and just go ahead and download a couple of these. And then there is a new tab on the left-hand side here called Playground. So you'll click Playground. You'll see that they have a multi-model session here. Just click Go. And now what we can do is load a couple models. So up here where it says Select Models to Load, choose this, and I'm going to choose Phi2 first. Once that one's done, then choose another one. I'm going to choose Stable LM Zephyr because it's also a smaller model. Okay, and once you have that done, then just come over here on the left-hand side and click Start Server. And we're up and running. Now let's create an AutoGen file where we can see how we have two different models from one LM Studio software running at the same time, and how we distinguish them with the agents. So what we'll have is two different LLM configs. I'm going to name the first one Zephyr and the second one Phi2. Now, how we distinguish them is in our config list, we have a model, base URL, and API key. With the new AutoGen update, we can say LM-studio for the API key so it recognizes LM Studio. Then we have a base URL. This is the same, this has always been the same for LM Studio. Now we have a model name. Really, this is a model identifier from the model that we've loaded, right? So I'll show you where to find this in a minute. Whichever assistant agent had the Zephyr as the LLM config definition, they're going to use the Zephyr model. Now for Phi2, another LLM config, we have the config list and then the model. This is the identifier for the Phi2 model. Then we have the base URL, which is the same, and the API key, which is also the same. Also, might not have mentioned this before, but for the cache seed, you can set this to none, meaning that it will never cache your results, and every time you run this, it'll always be different. I have two agents. I have one named Phil, who's going to be using Phi2 model, and I have one named Zep, who's going to be using the Zephyr model. And then I just have Phil initiate a chat with Zep saying, tell me a joke. That's it, really simple, but this is going to show you how to have multiple models working together in one LM Studio software. Now, as I said, we have to get this identifier here. Let's go over to LM Studio and I'll show you where to get that. So back in LM Studio, if you click, for instance, let's just click Phi2. Over here, there's an API model identifier. You can just copy this, and the same thing for Zephyr. You can just look at the API model identifier and then copy that as well. All right, after I ran it, as we can see here, this is the server logs for both the models, and I mean, it worked, right? Here's is accumulating all the tokens for the responses back to each other. But here we go. Like, so it worked, right? So this is just, you can go back to LM Studio, look, and you can see how the interaction went. Okay, now if we go back to our IDE and look at what happened here, we say Phil started talking to Zep, tell me a joke. Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing. Haha, they had the audience laughing. Great. Okay, awesome. What happened here? Okay, so again, let's review what just happened. We had two separate models working on one LM Studio software running. It was open source, it was free, we didn't have to worry about OpenAI's API key, and they could talk to each other. I think that this was a huge update, and I think this is really going to help out, especially if you liked Elm Studio, or if you haven't tried it yet, I recommend you downloading it and just trying it. It's free. You know, they don't store any of your information. You can use all open source local LLMs. If you have any comments or anything you want to chat about, leave them down in the section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.